Tiger's on, it can definitely look very effortless at times. And I think the reason being is that he is hitting it so flush. It doesn't look like he's exerting a lot of energy or power to hit the ball how he wants. When he's kind of really feeling it, then he can dial it in within yards and feet sometimes, even if he's 200 yards away, which seems kind of ridiculous. He's always been a really good fairway wood player. Nowadays, it's more the nature of the golf courses and the golf course setups. Back when Tiger was younger, if he hit a really good drive, he might only have an 8-iron in to a par 5. Nowadays, a lot of the par 5s on tour are 600 yards. So even if you hit a pretty good one, you're still going to have over 200 in, and if there's a dog leg or something. So it's made that part of his game stand out, I think, a little bit more and put greater importance on it.
I have a 5-wood out here. What gets me into this position is something in the neighborhood of 240-ish. Depends on, obviously, the conditions and what I have going on. A good 5-wood for me goes about 245. On some days, if I hammer it, I can carry about 260. But generally about 245. I hit my 2-iron about the same. Obviously the 5-wood I can hit a lot higher. As far as body positioning, the only difference is the ball's further forward. As the clubs get longer, my ball tends to drift forward more towards my left foot. And then because I'm gonna hit this 5-wood high, I increase that by putting it a little bit further forward. And all I do is really put more speed in my hands and my arms. I tend to play with my 5-wood more often now than I would my 2-iron. My 2-iron, they carry about the same. I feel like I can carry the 2-iron 240, and that's basically what I hit my 5-wood. But I have the ability to hit the ball out of the rough with 5-wood. There's times when I've had 150 yards out, 160 yards out. I'll take a 5-wood, open it up, hit down on it, squeeze it, and get it up there. But there are more scenarios in which I need a 5-wood now than I would a 2-iron. And the game has changed. The only time I've really used a 2-iron is at the British. Otherwise, I'd much rather have the option of having more spin and having a shot to play at a rough with a 5-wood than I would a 2-iron. If I want to hit one high, all I do is basically pull the ball, one ball further forward in my stance. I try and stay behind it a little bit further, a little bit longer, and really try and feel like my hands move past my body so I can get some serious speed. So here we are behind it. I'm gonna hit a high 5-wood, put it up in my stance, increase the speed.
It's something that amateurs, again, struggle with. If there was a simple bit of advice that you could give an amateur for fairway wood, what would it be?
Oh, because that's one of the harder things to hit is a fairway wood, because these golf balls now are so much harder. They don't spin, so it's hard to get the ball up in the air. And what I've recommended to most of my amateur partners when they say, how can I get better at this? Just add more loft. Just one more degree on the club. It makes the world of difference. When I don't have enough loft on the club, I tend to sit back and rock backwards to try and get the ball up in the air. And I see amateurs trying to hit the ball further. Obviously, if you can launch it and hit it high with no spin, it's gonna go further. But for me in particular, I just think that if you add just a little bit more loft, it's so much easier to control.
Tiger's kind of set everything up for control, so his is going to come in on a very much more vertical attack angle, and so it's going to land on the greens and stay there. If you can launch it higher and with plenty of spin, it's going to land softer and stay in place. Tiger's kind of set up his equipment for that control and to launch it higher with more control spin rather than just trying to hit his 3-wood 300 yards, which he could. He definitely could set it up and hit a 300-yard 3-wood. We've even tested some times where his 3-wood will be almost as long as his driver, but again, what's the point in doing that? You know, it would be maybe fun to tell your buddies you're hitting a 295 3-wood, but you know, but it doesn't do you any good if you're trying to hit it 280 and have it actually land softly on a green over water.
My entire career, if I'm hitting a high draw 3-wood really well, then it seems like my long irons and my driving are great. But if I'm not able to hit a high draw 3-wood, then my long irons and my driver don't seem to be as well. 20 some odd years that's been the case. That's one of my go-to checkpoints.
Is there something technically about that you think?
I don't know what it is. It's weird. I can feel like I'm able to hit a, you know, either in the old days, 1-iron, 2-iron up in the air, if I'm able to hit my 3-wood. But if I'm not able to hit my 3-wood, then I feel like I don't have the ability to hit my long irons or drive the ball well. I don't know why that is.
Maybe something to do with body speed and fluidity, because you have to
If you would figure that out for me, it would have been great, like over 20 years ago.
I'll work on it.
Thank you. I don't really feel like I try and sweep the ball that often. There are times when, yes, I do. When I'm trying to hit a high turning draw with either a 5-wood or 3-wood. Yes, I do. I try and sweep it. But generally, I like hitting down on them. Over the course of my whole career, is hitting the ball solid has always been one of the hallmarks of my game, and hitting iron shots solid allows me to control my trajectory. So I think it all starts with hitting the ball flush.
Typically, you'll see a lot of guys with a long iron. If you start to look at the wear marks on their clubs, the longer the iron, the higher the wear mark will be, the more out to the toe it might be. Tigers are always dead center, one groove high, right in the middle every single time. And if you can do that, you just hit the ball so much more flush, and then your launch conditions are so much better because you're going to get true loft, you're going to get, you know, the right amount of spin, not too much, not too little. And so his ability to really hit it on the screws, that's the key.
Here we are with just normal stock iron shots from the fairway. I've got a 6-iron here. My 6-iron generally goes about 200 yards. And it all depends on temperature, how the body's feeling, if it's hot or cold out, into the wind, downwind, that all adjusts. But everyday Eddie at home, 200 yards, 6-iron. I'm always doing something with the golf ball. And so slight cuts, slight draws, I'm just maneuvering the ball, even if it's like a few feet in the air, I'm always doing something with it. So a stock is, do I feel comfortable hitting that ball? Yeah, I can hit it further, a little harder, but I basically do a lot of my feel with my hands and how I build that stance, sense the environment. The wind is just picked up off my left shoulder. The daytime heating's starting to come up, and I feel like I can cover a 7-iron and get it there, but I'm just gonna clip a 6. So we have just over 200 yards, build my normal stance, nice balance, hit my normal shot. Just because I feel it's slightly below my feet, I'm gonna make the slight adjustment of putting the ball slightly further back, maybe about half a ball, quarter of a ball further back in my stance. It's gonna flatten out the shot just a touch. I've got just a little bit of help off my left shoulder now. So I could actually drop down to a 7-iron and hit that now and get there, but I'm gonna hit a little 6. I'll clip it, I'll stay a little taller. I'll make sure I sweep a little bit more left with my left hand and keep the ball in the air.
You've said to me before that you change sometimes the shot on the downswing, which will never cease to blow my mind. But describe that to people and
Well,
how you do that.
There are times when I've got the club in a bad position coming down. It's not where I want to have it for the shot I want to play. And so I've had to bail on it and then feed it with my hands, and usually it's because I've gotten stuck under, is try and time up the flip. But there are plenty of times that I've gotten too steep and I've had to hold it off just a touch. And that's just and then there are times when I will hear the wind like rustling in the trees. I'm like, oh, okay, I can lean on just a touch more. It's all feel. Those are all things that I really can't see how I do it. I just know that I do it. More of a reactionary thing than is anything else. Crisp connection, I think, comes from, I always try to hit every shot solid. I don't try and really do a whole lot with it. The hallmark of my game has been my iron play over the course of my career. Maybe it's because I've hit down on it. Maybe it's because I've had speed. Maybe it's because I've had more comfort in taking spin off of it, which gives me more options with irons. But I think that the overall premise to hitting good iron shots is hitting it flush and controlling the trajectory. Over the better part of my career, putting solid contact has been something that I've really never have struggled with.
Would you go back to that being something that you grew up doing, just like your dad said, focusing on just hitting the middle of that club face and that being a priority?
That's all my dad had me do. It's just swing as hard as you want, hit the ball solid, and have perfect balance. You do all those things, do whatever you want.